Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast. And joining me is friend of the show and Rockets expert Salman Ali from Red Nation Hoops. Happy New Year, Salman. Great to see you again.
Happy New Year, Robert. Thanks for having me back on.
Absolutely. Looking forward to this conversation because there's a lot to talk about with the Rockets. And I got to start off with Jalen Green. Do you believe the last 3 games from Jalen Green are something? 25 points, 53% shooting from 3, maybe because I'm the Jalen Green skeptic. It seems like among Rockets media, it's hard for me to get excited about big outputs against an Embiid-less Sixers defense and the historically awful Pistons.
I think it's something in that I never believed he was as bad of a shooter as he was showing in that rough stretch. Now, do I think he's as good as a shooter as he's showing in this stretch? No, but it's obviously law of averages. He's averaging out closer to where I think he is as a shooter. I think he's, I've said this before. I do believe in Jalen Green's jump shot. I think he's probably going to be close to a 36 to 37% three-point shooter for his career. And he's headed towards that point. He's like 34 or 35% right now from 3. So he's close to that point now. And I think as the season progresses, he will get closer to that point. Now, do I think he's going to be this consistent night to night as he's been the past 3 games? Probably not. But I did not expect a third-year leap, right? Like I've been pretty consistent in not expecting that this year from Jalen Green, but I think he will get better. I still think there's a lot of time for him to show real growth this season.
What is his ceiling, do you believe? And has your opinion of his ceiling changed? Is it superstar? Is it all-star? Is it solid starter in the NBA? What is your ceiling?
My opinion of his ceiling has not changed. It's always been kind of that Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine level all-star type in the NBA. My opinion of his floor, like I never really seriously addressed his floor as a player in the NBA. When I think of Jalen Green's floor, I've never said it out loud, but it's always been kind of Jordan Clarkson, right? But I've never seriously considered. I didn't say it out loud because I never seriously considered the idea that that actually be a possible outcome for him. Like I was closer to believing that he'd become that Zach LaVine level all-star, right? So in that respect, some things have changed in that I'm more willing to acknowledge like his lower end outcomes, but I still think the higher end outcomes are on the table. I have not wavered on that. Nothing I've seen has made me waver on that.
Let's move to Jabari because over his last 19 games, he's shooting 50% from the field, 40% from 3. Do you like how the Rockets are using Jabari offensively, given all that information?
I think he could do for an increase in usage. I think he's earned that at this point. He's shooting the ball efficiently enough to warrant more touches, but you have to give him the right kind of touches. He's still not a great self-creator, right? He is a improving self-creator, shown much more chops at that this year, but I would like to see him more intentionally used versus someone like Alperen Şengün. Like Alperen Şengün should be given more leeway because he is so gifted. Jabari, you need to kind of put him in more spot situations. So I in that sense, like I'm willing to see him more in the post and kind of have the ability to shoot over guys, step back from that area. Like he loves going to that spot on the floor. I think it's warranted to give him more looks there, more trailing threes, but I'm honestly not overly disappointed in how the Rockets have used him because the Rockets have such a gifted option at the center position in Alperen Şengün that it's hard to really, and you have Fred VanVleet manning your backcourt. It's hard to really feed mouths after that, right? I understand how tough it can get after your first 2 options.
Yeah, it's interesting because they choose a lot of times instead of posting up Jabari, we've seen them go to Dillon Brooks in the post, which has been effective. Jeff Green in the post, which has been effective. However, it feels like a little bit, Salman, it's at the expense of getting a young guy like Jabari who you want to see develop more touches. How do you feel about that?
Well, those are different looks, right? Like Jeff Green and Dillon Brooks get deep post looks because they're very strong as players, right? And Jabari is not going to do that, right? He's going to get mid-post looks. He's going to get looks in the post that warrant him shooting mid-range jumpers, whereas that's never really something. I mean, Dylan Brooks takes the occasional mid-range jumper, but he's really trying to get to the basket, be a wrecking ball, get fouled. With Jabari, he has a knack for drawing fouls, but really he's trying to shoot that mid-range J. So I think it's fine that he's not getting a lot of those looks, but I think mid-post looks, I would like to see more of those.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been dying to see a lot more of those, especially when Şengün goes to the bench. I would like to see it be a more Jabari centric offense. And, Jalen, if he can keep this up, obviously you want to see him when Şengün goes to the bench, and we'll see how that works out. I don't have many Udoka complaints. I don't imagine you do either, but my one biggie is, hey, I understand why coaches trust vets over rookies.
Is it Jock Landale? Yeah.
It's coming. Yeah, it's coming. I just don't get playing terrible vets over rookies with maybe superstar ceilings. And you know where I'm going with this. Jock Landale, he's been awful. Defense, rebounding, shooting, you name it. Reggie Bullock brings nothing outside of an occasional wide open three. Neither shown the defense. Udoka, supposedly worships. So I'm trying to figure it out. Do you understand Cam Whitmore and why he's only had one game with meaningful rotation minutes, especially since his occasional 5 or 10 minutes cannot be worse than Landale or Reggie Bullock? And yeah, I get it. Landale is a center, but I'm just one of those guys. I don't care what position that you play. If you're playing it bad, it doesn't matter. I'd rather go small than play a center because he's a center.
As I understand the frustration, right? But like, here's my thing with Cam. It's like, I don't understand what the rush is. Like before the season, the expectation should have been, given how packed the rotation was, this guy wasn't going to see time, right? Like, we should have had our expectations properly calibrated in that sense. Like Jayshawn Tate, Tari Eason, Jabari Smith, Alperen Şengün, that's a Dylan Brooks, that's a packed front court.
Yeah, like, I get that. I understand. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't one of those. Trust me on this. I was not one of those that said, you throw Cam Whitmore into the fire from game one. I'm of the belief, let rookies simmer, send him to the G League, let him get used to stuff, let him see what's going on. I've been watching the NBA for 40 plus years, so I understand all of that. I give all that. It's just when you're at the point where you're playing Landale and Reggie Bullock, and they're just flat out awful. And Cam Whitmore, and I get it, he's going to go out there and he's going to make mistakes, but there's a deal whether if you're going to make mistakes, rotation wise, okay, yeah, I get it. But he also is going to make some great plays for you. Whereas Jock Landale and Reggie Bullock aren't going to make great plays for you. It's like that. Let me put it to you this way. Tari Eason, I'll give you an example. And I'm not asking for Cam Whitmore for 25 minutes a game. The 5 or 10 that Jock Landale or Reggie Bullock get, I just don't understand. And I don't understand why you just don't want to see him play. But I'll give you an example like Tari Eason. We see Tari Eason make, stupid mistakes all the time, right? Tari Eason, he throws the ball where he should, and he's very tunnel vision. He screws some stuff up occasionally. But Tari Eason, for every 1 or 2 things that he does bad, he does 5 or 7 or 8 things great. And I just see like Cam Whitmore can be one of those guys where he's going to make that great, and let him get those mistakes in 5 or 10. And guess what, Salman, you can always pull him. If he's terrible for 5 or 10 minutes, you won't put Reggie Bullock and Jock Landale back in the game. I guess put them back in the game if Cam Whitmore is so darn bad. But at this point, those guys are just not giving you anything. And at least Cam Whitmore, there's the potential of giving you something.
Well, here's what I'll say. The Reggie Bullock thing, like, listen, he's played 113 total minutes. It's really not that big of a deal with him. But the Landale thing, I'm kind of with you. But I would, twist it a little bit. I would say I'd like to see more of Jabari at center, actually, versus someone like Cam. Like, I think I'd like to see, instead of having Landale out there for those 10 or so minutes a game, I'd rather see, Jabari kind of experiment there at that backup center spot and play more Tari at the 4, Tate at the 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, they're not playing Landale every single game. It's been Jeff Green that's playing the backup minutes.
Yeah.
And so, it has been pretty much Jabari as the backup center for I was the guy in the offseason. I think I told you this a few months ago. I said, I want to see Jabari at center. And, I would like to see a Jabari, Tari, and Şengün rotation in the top and that threesome right there. But now with the injuries and all that sort of stuff, and then Tari's got this minutes restriction based on his injury and stuff like that, there's that issue. So, yeah, for me, that would be the case. But when all these guys start getting injured, and he still managed, there are nights where he still had to put Landale out there where I just because you needed minutes from somebody. And, setting a screen, which is the reason why he was supposedly in the game at the end of the game the other night, that to me, that's just a joke. I mean, you can set a screen with Jeff Green in a situation like that. But if what he does well for you, if all he does is set a screen, so what? If he can't step out, pop the three, if he's terrible on the roll, if he's not getting you the rebound, whatever. And it's just, I'm not asking for 20 minutes. Again, Salman, just give me 5 or 10 of Cam. And if he sucks, take him out. But get his feet wet a little bit, because the other part about this is his ceiling is so high. What happens if he's good his rookie year? We're seeing players that can be good their rookie years and contribute. What if he can give you something? This is a team that desperately needs bench points, and he could give you that.
Yeah, listen, I'm with you on the Landale thing. Like Landale, I agree, should not be playing as much as he has, right? Or like even the spot minutes, I don't think he's really earned. But in terms of like how the Rockets go about using him, I think the real criticism are like the nights where the Rockets are seriously injured. That's when Cam's not playing in those games. That's where I'm with you, right? If you're talking about night to night, I kind of think it's the rotation's too packed. But like when the Rockets have like 3 guys out with injury in that front court, and Cam's like not even getting a look there, that's when Bullock's coming in, or when other guys are coming in that haven't played all year. Like I think you should throw in Cam. But if we're talking about Ime criticisms, that's like what? Nothing. I mean, it's such a minor gripe with like how he's managed his rotation. That's why I can't find myself getting as energized by it, by that animated by it. Like I normally, like stuff like this does animate me, but like when it's just like the 10th guy on the roster, which kind of is what Cam is when the rotation's healthy, I'm not too upset about it. Like I get it. Like Landale shouldn't be playing, right? But I don't know. I don't know what else to say other than it's really not that big of a deal to me, because again, he's in his rookie season, and the Rockets will have plenty of opportunities to find him minutes as that contract moves forward. And I guarantee you, as the trade deadline approaches, not all these guys are going to remain here, and opportunities will open up then too. I'm looking at a guy like Jae'Sean Tate. Like, I don't know if he's going to be here past the trade deadline.
Yeah.
I know the Rockets really like him, and I know the Rockets want to keep him. But like, if something intriguing opens up, especially if you're talking about a deal that involves Victor Oladipo's contract that you can aggregate with Jae'Sean Tate, that's super intriguing for the Rockets. That might be a way to open up minutes for Cam, right? And that's when Cam can sneak back into the rotation. So I would just give this a little bit of time. If he doesn't play that much his rookie year, I don't think it's that big of a deal, as long as he's playing somewhere. And he has been playing somewhere.
Yeah, I guess I look at this as like, you're also looking ahead as much as you're looking to try to do something this year. And so getting Cam going quicker, and this is not a Jalen Green or Jabari situation like from the last couple of years where you're just saying, hey, let's go play 30 minutes. I'm talking about him playing 15 or 20 minutes and getting him going faster and his trajectory going faster, because as you know, Salman, this is also about team building. And if you can get a guy playing at close to his potential before he hits that second contract, it shows you what his ability is. So you know what to, maybe look to sign him for, but it also gives you that option of, hey, we can maybe go after something. If we got Cam going, along with Jalen going, along with Şengün going in the next couple of years, we can go out and we can aim for that big piece, because maybe we do have a chance to make a run this year, because, we've got these guys that are young and playing above their contracts and giving you a lot more than you would expect.
But if he's doing it in the G League versus if he's doing it in 10 to 15 minutes per game, do you think other NBA GMs aren't noticing that? Right? I understand what you're saying, and that you're right. If Cam is rolling in the NBA, it's definitely an eyebrow raiser, and it definitely helps you cultivate packages better,
No,
right?
no, I'm not talking. You're talking about trading Cam. I'm saying, what if Cam, if you can get him in 2 years being at, either an incredible bench player or a legit starting score go-to guy. I mean, this guy, man, look, I was not the biggest Cam fan coming into the draft, but just how physical, like just seeing him against NBA athletes physically, what he can do and what we've seen from him already, and the confidence that he has as a 19-year-old. Like, we got to remember, this guy is super duper young. As a 19-year-old, what he's able to do physically against big time NBA guys, when you see him out there against those particular players, I mean, I'm talking about, hey, that means you've got a really cheap, really great player on your roster, and you can go take a couple of other guys that you've got and some draft picks and, like, hey, let's go for this. Like, let's go for this. We got Cam, we've got Shangoon, we've got Jabari, and we package some other guys maybe, or whatever you want to do. It gives you that option, because all of a sudden, what's going to matter going forward is team building with this new CBA, and the new way they've built this thing is, like, having young cheap guys matters a ton.
Go for what though? Right? This is always my question when I hear people wanting to press fast forward on a rebuild. Like, when you say go for it, what do you mean specifically?
I'm talking about, hey, let's make a deep playoff run.
With
And
this
I'm not,
core right now?
no. I'm saying, if you get Cam up to speed, the longer it takes you to develop him, I'm saying, what if you move fastly with Cam, and by year 3, you're like, oh my God, or in year 2, you're like, oh my God, maybe we really got something here. And you can go out and get somebody else, and you've got a really cheap, like, great player on your roster in Cam Whitmore. It's going to make a big difference as to, how you feel about, actually making sort of a run. You go out and get a veteran guy with Shangoon that's already looking like, an all-star right now. And, what you're seeing from some of these other guys and how they're developed, Tari and Jabari and stuff like that, you just never know. And we think, everybody is under this assumption that this is like, oh, we got to look 5 years down the road. You can't look 2 years down the road in the NBA right now. It's just not the way it works. It's not the way it works. And you're not going to, and if these guys hit like you hope that they're going to hit, you're going to have to start paying them in 2 or 3 years. And you're not going to have that option of going after that big guy that you can put next to these guys at a more expensive cost, maybe for a couple of years. And while you've got these young guys on the cheap.
Yeah, but Robert, what you're describing is often how teams make mistakes by pressing fast forward too quickly, right? Like if you look at a team like the Cavaliers, you're talking about a team that is legitimately very scared about the prospect of Donovan Mitchell walking out on them, right? And they would not have been in that position had they just waited and not made that kind of a trade.
Their biggest problem isn't the fact that it's Donovan Mitchell and they press fast forward. They press fast forward on a really, really small backcourt. Mobley hasn't developed offensively at all. Jared Allen and Mobley are basically getting in each other's way instead of, helping each other the way you would hope that they would be in Cleveland. And Donovan Mitchell, the other problem is, if you're not stuck with Donovan Mitchell. The problem with Donovan Mitchell is those guys can still develop. They could still get better. The problem is Donovan Mitchell doesn't want to stay in Cleveland, and he's probably going to walk in a couple of years. That's probably their biggest problem, because, give them more than a couple of years to develop, and maybe there is something there. But it's also about, how that fit went with Cleveland and how they looked at the fit. And I think that's a problem. And having 2 small guards is an issue. It's a big issue.
Yeah, but you said Mobley hasn't had the chance, hasn't developed well offensively. Well, he's a third-year player, right? Is it possible if the Cavs had waited another year or two before pressing fast forward, he is the guy that is the centerpiece of a legitimate championship contender. But because the Cavs pressed fast forward now, or excuse me, last year, like, they're in this position where they're having to pray that this guy doesn't walk out on them, and wasted assets in the process when they could have just kept those assets, waited for the right time, and then press fast forward. Because here's the thing: if you're talking about Cam Whitmore's third season, about him being a contributor to a championship team, I'm on board. Right? If you're talking about his first or second
No,
season,
no,
him, like,
no.
or even like, let's just say next year, right? Let's just say next year the Rockets try and press fast forward. My problem with that is Şengün's going to be like 22 years old. The best player on the team theoretically is going to be 22 years old. I don't think that's good enough.
But what if you're trading for the
That means
best player
Şengün's
on
not
the
on the
team?
team. That means Şengün's not going to be on the team then.
Not
Right.
necessarily. Depends
Right.
if it's depends where that
Well,
player
then you
plays.
have to trade for a super duper star,
Yeah,
right?
and that's what
Like
you
like
and it
but
gives you
like
that option to trade for that super duper star. If you look at Cam Whitmore in year 3 as he's
but
going towards year 3 and you're like, "Oh my god, this guy's legit," and we got
But here's
Şengün.
the problem, Robert. Like Cam would be in that deal. If you're trading for a super duper star, Cam would be in that deal. Like it's not like you get to keep Cam as a cheap contract. Cam would probably be one of the asking prices.
Could be Jalen, could be Jabari, could be a lot of different guys. There's other
I
guys.
mean, if it's a super duper star, Cam is absolutely in that deal. I guess I'm saying like you can't rob these teams, right? Like you're gonna have to give up something that's gonna hurt, or you play the patience game, which I'm totally okay with playing the patience game. I think that's the prudent way. You don't press fast forward now; you press it 2 or 3 years from now. And that's when you can think about Cam being a serious contributor on a championship team. And that's why I'm okay with him playing in the G League. I don't think his development is being hampered. As long as he's playing. Like my problem with Şengün last year is the guy was like just being hampered from playing. Like straight up playing in his best role. Cam is at least playing somewhere.
To me, the G League, he's overqualified, and but this is my personal feeling, and you disagree with me if you want to. The G League's a waste of time. Those guys, it's not organized basketball. Nobody, every guy we send down there looks great. Daisha Nix looked like an all-star. Kevin Porter Jr. looked like an all-star. I mean, no matter who, look, it's such a big difference between the G League and the Rockets, and I don't think they're really getting anything. And it's they're not learning the key stuff because this defense just doesn't matter in the G League. And that's what where you really need these guys up to speed is on the defensive end more than anything. You want to disagree with me? Disagree with me. But I mean, look at the development of the guys that have come out of the G League Ignite. It's terrible. Those guys come into the NBA so ill prepared because it is the G League. I mean, I don't like it at all. I mean, I just don't think it's a help for them to get in shape, but that's about it for me.
But for every player that doesn't work out in the G League, for every Daisha Nix, there's a Robert Covington. For every guy who doesn't work out in the G League, there's a Fred VanVleet, right? The G League has had legitimate success in the NBA at working guys out and becoming real NBA players.
But it's not you're talking about guys that were not up in the G League that were they weren't guys that were expected to be like if you send down your best players to go down there, I don't know really how much development is happening in the G League. I just don't see the development. There are guys that come out of that you can find in the G League because there's just so much talent out there that sometimes guys get missed. We see guys getting missed all the time, guys not getting drafted, et cetera, et cetera. We just, you just see it with Porter up in Cleveland this year and what's going on with him. But I mean, just overall, I just don't think the G League is much of a help for Cam Whitmore's development, except to keep him in shape. That's about it.
I mean, Clint Capella is a pretty damn good like G League development story, right? Like there are a bunch of guys you can just pull from thin air that just they help. It helps like when my thing is you have to be playing somewhere, right? A professional league somewhere to like because otherwise your time is being wasted. And if you're not playing, you're not doing anyone any good, including yourself. So I don't know. Like I'm a believer in the G League. I actually think a lot of these guys coming out of the Ignite that have not worked out yet, it's just a matter of when, not if, for a lot of these guys. I'm still a big believer in Scoot Henderson, and still a believer in Jalen Green. So, like I get a lot of people's skepticism about the G League, but I'm just not there at that. I'm just
Yeah,
not
they're
that
going to work out, but they're not going to. Their development. I'm just saying their development was slowed down from that year in the G League. Instead of playing where you're playing team basketball, whether it's in college or another pro league, where you actually have to, work on defense, think about stuff in a team concept. And anyway, we just disagree on that wholeheartedly. Let's see if we disagree on this. Who's the Rockets' most valuable player this year so far? And it's an easy answer for me, but I'm wondering if we differ at all. Who's your guy?
Alperen Şengün. Yeah, it's he's by far the biggest driver of success for the Rockets this year. It's not even close. I don't feel like I have to go into a long soliloquy on this. Like I feel like it's pretty cut and dry.
I just feel like he's the best player, but I feel like the most valuable player for the Houston Rockets this year. And it's funny to me, some people on different social media apps, just kind of take shots at the guy. But I mean, the Rockets would have about 6 wins this year if it wasn't for Fred VanVleet. His leadership, his ability to organize the offense, his ability to start the key on Şengün. Şengün has had success because he's working off of what VanVleet is doing off the pick and roll. You know how important he is because if he goes out of the game for more than 3 minutes, Udoka nearly has a heart attack and has to throw him back in the game immediately. He leads the NBA in minutes for a reason. It's because the Rockets are scared to death of taking him out of the game. It doesn't fit on a TikTok video too often, but defense matters. And VanVleet, I know he's undersized, but man, the guy causes steals. He causes havoc when other guys drive the lane. His help defense, him getting his hand in there, him, slowing down a guy that's trying to post him up that's bigger just because he's fighting and poking the ball away. It's all of that. All these little things matter. And the way he gets back on, there's a reason why the Rockets have one of the best fast break defense. I think it is the best fast break defense in the NBA right now. And Fred VanVleet is 100% a part of that. So to me, he's the MVP. The best player is Şengün. The MVP for the Rockets, the most valuable player, the most important player this year has been Fred VanVleet.
I'm not gonna fervently disagree with that because if I were to rank this, I would say Fred VanVleet was probably second, right, on my list. I think it is true to a large extent that Fred VanVleet came in and kind of viewed this Rockets roster with a fresh set of eyes. Didn't care what guys were drafted, didn't care what guys were getting paid. Just kind of gave the ball to the best players, and he recognized how talented Alperen Şengün was right away. In a lot of ways, he is a big, VanVleet. Şengün owes a lot of his early season success to Fred VanVleet, right? Him popping is a credit to, in a lot of ways, VanVleet and his chemistry in the pick and roll together. My thing with this is VanVleet's awesome. Don't get me wrong. How many wins would this team have if it wasn't for if Şengün wasn't on the team? Put in center, league average center. Put in a league average center, and put in VanVleet. Right? I think he would make the team better. I don't think it's nearly to the level it is right now without Şengün just driving the bus here. He really, the Rockets went to him in that third quarter last night with deliberation. Right? They were very, very keyed in on just giving him the ball and letting him do whatever the hell he wants, right? And that helped them expand that lead out to 30 points, right? And run away with that game. That's been the story all year with Şengün, right? He's been that damn good all year. And these past 3 or 4 games, he's starting to flash that face of the franchise potential, right? He's starting to 30-point game regularly, that kind of stuff, right? And that's kind of why I lean Şengün. And also I'm a bias, right? I've always been on this train, right? So but I'm not gonna lie, I do see the argument for VanVleet. I just as the organizer and the vocal leader for the team.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention the fact that VanVleet just doesn't turn the ball over hardly at all. And that's a big part of why the Rockets have also had a lot of success is if you get more possessions than the other team because you're not turning the ball over and more shots, it actually helps you win games, believe it or not. And, and like I said, to me, it's about this team has turned around because of its veteran leadership, whether it's Udoka or VanVleet or Jeff Green. But I think Van Vliet has played a bigger part of that than anybody else because he's on the court more than anybody else. And also because he's the point guard and he's directing traffic out there. And of course, the fact that late in games, man, he's hit some big shots late in games too. We can't forget about some of the stuff that he's done. And like I said, it's, Şengün, don't get me wrong. Like you could say co-MVP Şengün. I have no problem with that. But I think there's just an underrated part about Van Vliet that people don't understand. And everybody wants to look at Basketball Reference or TikTok videos to decide who the best player is. And sometimes you got to look a little bit deeper. Sometimes you got to look at what the guy's intangibles are. And Van Vliet's toughness and leadership, I keep going back to leadership. Yeah, but toughness, leadership, defense, all of that stuff, it just matters. It matters. And there's nights that Şengün's defense has not been good. And even you as a big Şengün fan, you know this. There are nights where he's looked bad. And he said he's looked bad defensively. And Udoka has said he's looked bad defensively some nights. There's never a night that Van Vliet shows up and he's not playing really good defense and not giving you everything he's got and showing up on both ends of the court. And really, people don't get it, but basketball, 50% of basketball is defense. I know it looks offense is sexy, but 50% of basketball is defense. And his defense is something that you got to keep talking about because it's not because he's bigger or stronger or he's blocking shots, but he's just doing all these little things that you don't notice until you start noticing. And I know you notice, Salman, you know what he's doing.
Yeah, Van Vliet's good. Like he's really, really good. Like I am not gonna sit here and pretend like he hasn't been a big driver in what the Rockets are doing this year. I tend to favor Şengün by a hair just because when in doubt, I'm gonna defer to who I think the best player on the team is, and I just think he's the best player on the team. But I think it is a fair argument. I mean, Van Vliet has been. He was the absolute right signing for the Rockets this offseason. There was a real debate there about whether or not the Rockets should go after James Harden. And I was on the James Harden side of the debate, to be frank. Up until Harden had those comments in China, I was firmly in the Rockets need to go after James Harden. And then Harden makes those comments, and not only those comments, but just how important Van Vliet has been to this team this year, how much of a clean fit he is to this roster. In retrospect, I was wrong. Van Vliet was absolutely the right guy for the Rockets to go chase.
100%. What's the latest with Red Nation Hoops?
Yeah, rednationhoops.com. Obviously, this is the newsletter. You can sign up there. You can find the links to the YouTube channel there, the podcast, wherever you guys listen to podcasts, you'll find it all there. The posts, all that stuff, free and paid versions of everything.
Fantastic. Great stuff. It's at Salman Ali NBA. Always a blast having him on the show. Lots of knowledge. We disagree at times, but I always respect his opinion. He's got great stuff. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks for having me on, Robert.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.